3, 2. All right, we are live. Hi everyone, I'm super excited to host Alicia Nahmad, and I have been reading about Alicia's work for a while and can't be more honored to host you and the amazing work you're doing. I can't wait for the whole conversation. Thanks for being on the show.
No, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of your show. Very excited to have a conversation here with you today, Mayur. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, Alicia, can you walk us through your background, like where you grew up and out of all things you could do in life, why you chose this industry?
Yeah, sure. So I'm from Mexico City. I grew up I grew up in most of my life in Mexico City, where I studied architecture. I was like I mean I don't have like any story there. Like my parents were not in construction industry, however they were related to the construction industry on their story. So I do was a lot of times in a construction sites as they are more into like the paint business, right? So I grew up in Mexico, studied architecture. I was working in Mexico for like a few years, mostly on development, on like real estate development. So that was mostly being on construction sites, just kind of project managing towers and a lot of the new residential complexes in Mexico City. That's after that, like I was working for like a few years, 5 years in Mexico City after like before graduation, and just after graduated I was like a young kind of architect in a construction site, so it was a bit interesting. And then I moved to the UK and to study at the AA, at the Architecture Association, where I joined the DRL. And that was, I think, like a very exciting moment on my life. Like I moved at the AA, it was all very new for me. All of like the kind of digital design methods, digital techniques was just like emerging in a way. And then I started to get involved into more to understand more about these other more generative ways of designing and ways of thinking. And I was there like I ended up being in London like for 12 years in the UK. After graduating from the AA, I worked for Zaha. For Zaha did architects, and then I worked for Populous. So I was working there like also in like kind of doing like design tools, developing parametric tools, working on that for large sport infrastructure, right? Like Stadia and these kind of things. At the same time, while I was like at Zahan and at Populous, I always kept this interest of like, how can we build a lot of these digital design shapes and a lot of these fabrication, new, very exciting geometries. And for me, I think when I was at the AA, like something very exciting was like, I started to know, like, for example, about Felix Candela, about all of these shell builders that actually I realized in my house was just around the corner of one of his buildings that I never even thought it was like an important building. I was just passing by there every single day. So it was really kind of opening my eyes and saying, well, this is already, how can we do this? So we started to build a series of pavilions in Mexico since 2011. We did the same as part of some of these was the AA was also starting the visiting school programs at the time. It was very new, like kind of really trying to bring these to other places. So we joined that. I also work a lot with Saadit Code, with Shaje and Mustafa, who were at the time there, into building a lot of these pavilions. So there was always this interest on like kind of getting these geometries into Mexico or into like trades and into building them with like local skills. So then after that, so that was during that time, and then I left Populous. At the time, I started to like all the robots in architecture things started to become mainstream in a way. Like it was when like RobArch was starting. A lot of these things were just kind of becoming very, and I became fascinated by that, right? So I started to be very much interested into what new potentials robots can bring, and I think like actually. We were in Mexico City. We were building the second shell, which is like a topology optimized shell structure that we built in Mexico with again with Shaje, with Chikara, who at the time was also at Saha, and we were building this pavilion, and it was such a complex shape, right? And it just became the idea of saying, well, if we could just have a robot to kind of give the 3D information from the computer to the workers, it would be so much easier, because the workers had all the skills, had all the knowledge. They could do these beautiful shapes, but they just needed this translation. And then by the time I came back to the UK, that was like 2013, 2014, I just said, well, I just want to know more. So I quit my job, and I just went into do a PhD just to kind of focus more time into learning more about robotics and about digital fabrication using robotics at the time. So that was like also very early on. And we bought our little robot at home where we used to have it like a industrial 6-axis robot arm that was living with us in my living room. So I really started to kind of change a little bit paths at the time. And then I did my PhD at Cardiff University, focused a lot in like robotics, digital fabrication, and still kind of keeping that. And then I was teaching at DAA, I did DRL. I was a studio master for 5 years, teaching with Shaje, running a studio where we're looking a lot about like participatory design methods. How can we design, especially the agenda at the time was the city, like kind of democratizing city making, and also digital fabrication, robotics. So at the time we started to go a lot to Boston, to Autodesk. Autodesk was also working with all of these build spaces and kind of this idea of like, well, how can people have more access to the tools was really starting to emerge, I think. So every year on my studio, we used to go to Boston to use the build space. I was an artist in residency at Autodesk at the time, also at San Francisco at the Pier 9. So kind of really starting to work with these ideas. And now I'm in Calgary. So now I kind of made a big move there. Now I left the UK last year. I'm in Calgary right now, kind of working in the same, right? Into like this, trying to kind of explore how can we democratize a lot of those digital fabrication methods. So that has been more or less like a little bit of my journey, a little bit all over the place, trying to merge a lot of different experiences and knowledge. And right now I have a startup. I have 2 startups. Right now I'm developing one with the idea also of creating like kind of these very flexible micro factories while we upskill local people, but also using local resources. And I'm also an assistant professor in Calgary University of Calgary, looking at also participatory fabrication methods for the trades and for the building stock, for the retrofitting of the building stock. So that's kind of some of the things that we are exploring, that we are working in the lab and also on my startup.
Alicia, your career journey is so inspiring. There's so many things to unpack. So I'm wondering, like, when you were navigating in your professional journey, like what were times where you find challenges and how did you overcome those?
Well, I find challenges all the time. Like I think that it has definitely not been easy. I think that since I was like very young, graduating architecture school and like being like a woman in construction, it's always difficult. And I think that it's always challenging and kind of, but it's just, I think I just keep trying. And I think that that's something like, I just don't, I just like kind of keep trying, keep exploring new things. Also, I have a lot of weaknesses, like, I tend to get very enthusiastic about a lot of things. So I am always have lots of projects, lots of things going on and juggling too many balls at the time. But I think that like challenges are always there. And I have make like, for example, like leaving Mexico after when I had a job and things were going very good for me at the time. I mean, for being just recent, not maybe 5-year recent graduate, but like really being running projects on site was for me very fascinating. Something that I was really, I mean, and I knew it was difficult, but at the time the contractors were kind of really kind of taking me serious, and that for me was a big step for being like a young woman, right? And I was happy. I always have loved construction sites, and then moving to the UK was a big challenge, but then like really kind of the DRL, the AA gave me this opportunity to learn so many new things, like new ways of designing, new ways of thinking about materials, about what materials can be, about how can we find shape through material, and even finding architects, Mexican architects or engineers that were so famous and so interesting that I was never taught that at school. So it really changed the way of thinking. So it was of course like living in a different country and all of that, but ended up becoming my home. Like I ended up being 12 years there, right? So I ended up being there all my life, kind of, for a very large part of my life. So I think that the challenges is just like I just keep myself busy. So I think I just don't find any, there are challenges, but there are many things going on at the same time. And I try to just keep exploring. And I don't say, I think for me, and for me, that's something I haven't really found easy in a way. Is like I'm more like a generalist in a way. So I know about a lot of different things, and I kind of and always I think like maybe I should just focus on a single thing, but then I just cannot do that. So, and I have tried, but then I also find building interesting. I find the robotics interesting. I find the digital fabrication interesting. So I'm like kind of a little bit all over the place and trying to do many things and knowing a lot about many things. So I think I'm more into like the generalist kind of things. And that has been very exciting, but also kind of maybe allows me to maneuver different scenarios where I have been placed myself. I think after the AA also like being at then being at Populous, and then like just leaving that security for going to academia again into a PhD, whereas I never saw myself as an academic person, but then there was also a big challenge, right? So I think that I have steered a lot of times, and it hasn't been easy. It has been challenging, but I think that I just find that I find something interesting. I find something that I'm passionate like about building. I'm definitely passionate about building, about fabricating, about doing stuff, and that's what I always try to follow. So even when I was like working at Populous, I was like trying to build stuff to get things done. So I think that that's something that I have always been following, and I guess that's at the end of the day has become my life is to really kind of find this way of building things in a better way by using new techniques on design and on fabrication, and how can we disseminate this, and that's what I'm kind of very focused and enthusiastic right now. And I think that the whole path has somehow maneuvered or steered me towards finding this corner where I feel I am right now.
Yeah, that's quite interesting, like making those bold decisions, taking the leap, and like always experimenting, like really is useful. And uh, like to your point, like it's like we see a lot of women in architecture, but as we see women in BIM and women in tech, like keeps on narrowing. So like what is your piece of advice like to all women who want to transition into construction tech, who might not see like a lot of role models out there? How can we, as an industry, take some actions proactively to improve this scenario?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, I am sure I don't have the answer. I am 100% sure I don't know how to do it. It's not easy. It's not something that this is still, I mean, as much as we want to be open about things, is the truth is not, it isn't. But I think that technology is helping. I think that you just like need to, I think that there is a lot of mentorship that is required, and that's something I even was discussing like even yesterday about like like moving to on site or like on constructions techniques. It's just about like knowing what you are looking for, and if you know what you are doing, or you kind of feel confident about what you are doing, even if you don't feel confident, it doesn't matter. You just need to seem confident, because I think that that's what a lot of women kind of holds us back, that we feel that we don't feel confident, or we feel that we need to be more experts to be confident, but then you realize that the others also don't know so much. So I think that that's just like something important to kind of keep in mind, and I think that a lot of women are becoming more expert in a lot of things, in a lot of like are like in fabrication and in robotics and these things. And I think that this just like really kind of be somehow like knowing it, and then when you are on site and discussing these things, or you are talking to others, it's just believing in what you are saying, right? And I think that and even if you don't, just pretending to, but I think that that's important. And then people start to get the message. I do find it, I mean, what I really don't know is, like, for example, I'm in Calgary, right? So I'm a professor there, and I teach digital fabrication, robotics, and I can say that my classes, my studio is mostly picked by men, and I find it, I don't know what to do about it, and I do find it, somehow sad, and I'm not happy about that. So that's why I say I don't know the answer. I wish I could somehow communicate it better, so I get more women that pick me, right? And at some point when we are, like maybe women try to go to other areas, maybe more like theory based, or more like uh, I don't really know, more other studios that are less hands-on fabrication and this. And that's something that I wish I could have a better answer, and I could know how can I encourage them to follow. However, something that I do find interesting is, once you are on site, and once we are talking about digital fabrication and about the robotics on site, you do see that women that maybe could not have joined, or that feel like, well, like these are kind of things, tasks that I would not be normally doing, like maybe even like just milling, or like kind of like using the machines. If they start to understand to work with the robotics and with those, they do feel alleviated by that, right? Like they feel comfortable on the machine, and then they can like use the machine and feel and because you have a robot arm, or you have like a digital machine, you don't need to have so much strength. So there are kind of trade-offs that start to become very interesting when they get immersed into the technology, which I think is something that I have been finding fascinating, especially as like loads, strength, things that we just need to assume, we just need to acknowledge we don't have the same strength as much as we are equal, right? So these kind of things I do find very interesting. However, the earlier of how can we encourage more women to want to enter, I don't know. I think that there are lots of people with good initiatives. Like I'm in a group of like women in robotics. I'm also in a group about women leading in AI. I'm also on a so I try to join as much as these groups as there are, and just try to be active. And I think that I know that now there is women in AEC. So I think that there are more of these groups emerging, which I think is great. And I really hope that they manage to capture more women to enter the field.
Yeah, definitely, like this kind of support groups helps a lot, because you can talk to your peers and help on board. But getting used to this technology really provides that accessibility, like as you were saying, but like overcoming that initial barrier of learning coding or learning these techniques is the tricky part, and like some people might get overwhelmed. So it's how we ensure, okay, it's not that difficult, you can learn it, as I have learned, like some.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's overcoming that first initial encounter, and then you can see that it's just I don't know, it just kind of maybe takes you in that direction.
Yeah. I want to pick your brain. So like I come from India, and like when I came to US, I see this robotic fabrication facilities much more advanced here compared to back in India. And like in a way, there's like software accessibility and there is hardware accessibility, like with online courses and online content. Like the software accessibility is global, but there's also sometimes hardware accessibility which is not as much prevalent in developing or underdeveloped countries. So I got to know that you are doing this startup in Rotan, Honduras, and you're developing this fabrication facility. What are like some initial response from the local community about adopting these tools, and how are you navigating this space to make this more accessible?
Oh, yeah, no, that's a great question, and I agree that maybe a lot of the resources are not available, and what I feel is like there are more resources available, but they are not like equally distributed, right? So a lot of people, they don't have access to digital tools or to digital fabrication machines, And that's where, but that's what brought me to this startup in Roatan, basically, was and that's also part of the work or related to the work I'm doing in Calgary also on the microfactory, is the idea of how can these tools be made accessible for the trades, right? For like the normal contractor, which like normally, or like unfortunately, I will say, is somehow being like left out. And this is a problem that I find in the UK. When I was at the UK, I also started to work with Innovate UK on the similar topic. And in Canada, then it's the same, right? Like you have like a lot of the fabrication things are becoming prefabricate or offsite fabrication. But basically what offsite fabrication means is that it's just becoming on the hands of a very few people that can afford these big machines, like the big 5-axis CNC machine, maybe like $400,000 or something, right? And that can have like these large spaces, large facilities where they can host these machines, right? So that means that a lot of people are just being left out. A lot of the SME contractors are being left out. And that's where our interest on this startup or the main idea is coming from. It's like, how can we get them back? And or how can we make these resources available for them? And the other thing that I find, and there are two other things, if I can mention, that kind of are, so one is accessibility, but the other two main factors that we have been working towards, so that we see, one is the loss of skills. So one is that maybe in countries like India, and I will say I'm from Mexico, right? Like in Mexico, and like even like here in Honduras, like Latin America, there are some skills, but like a lot of these skills are kind of getting lost. Like the trade, the master builder, or this idea of the master trade, right? Is there's not anyone to capture those skills. So there is not any young people really entering the construction industry. Like it's like we have a situation like that, like and the similarities between countries, like at least on my research, is kind of shocking that a lot of people will be coming to the end of their work life in a way, and like 25% of people will be ending, and then there is only like 5% of young people joining. So basically they're all like these skills who are not going to go anywhere, right? So one of our strategies or the way that we are thinking is like, how can we bring this fabrication, these digital tools that you are saying to others, but also if by bringing them to others, maybe young people will be excited because now there are robots, right? So now like, oh, this is cool. And maybe more young people will kind of actually, and even women, right? And all of like kind of minorities maybe now kind of become excited and say, well, maybe we also should join the construction industry because it's like a digitized construction industry. So that's what we are really trying to do, is to kind of, or what we are believing we could do towards this startup here, is like, one is to democratize the access to the digital tools, and the other is to make it attractive to young people to join. And so far the response, and I have to say, one is in Roatan, but also Calgary, because I'm these two kind of very similar projects we're doing right now. The response is very fantastic. Like a lot of people from the trades I have been talking to, like, we are offering like a micro credentialing, upskilling program where you can learn how to use the robots, how to do digital, how to incorporate digital fabrication into your workflow. Of course, always with the message of augmenting them, right? Of like, it's part of your workflow, because of course the robots are not able to do everything by themselves. So the response is very fascinating. They are very excited about working with us. We have contractors that even from the first conversation, when I'm saying like, well, do you guys will be interested in us training some of your people? And they will be like, and the answer is like, can I buy your microfactory after? And I'm like, totally. That's the idea. The idea is that you will buy it after, because then I mean, at the end, bringing machines is quite cheap. I mean, machines are everywhere, right? I'm setting up the workflow, setting up the digital workflow, setting up the hardware workflow, and then upskilling your people. And then, of course, I'm happy to leave the machines here and just move on. And so I think that the response has been very exciting. Like people are really want to work with us. They are, and they want to learn, and the idea of upskilling and of learning the digital tools seems to be something that they are interested in. So for me, that's a very good kind of fair response, and something that I mean, just to add to that, oh, I don't know if it's okay. I get a sign that my connection is unstable. Is it good?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to add, like, when we built Nit Candela in Mexico City in 2018, so some of the workers, I knew these workers, right, because we built the previous shells, concrete shells in Mexico also. And some of the workers that they came to me and they were kind of saying like, well, you know what, Alicia, we really like to work with you. And one of my workers, he's a like a construction worker, right? He knows how to do concrete stuff. He was telling me like, after I build the shells with you, I go to other construction sites and I show what I have done, and I get a higher fee, and I can ask for higher wages. So for me was like, and when they tell me these stories, and these are workers that were working with us to build Nit Candela, right? So it's like very exciting to hear that actually we are bringing them benefit, and then some of them were like, one other guy, he was telling me like, because I'm always doing columns and slabs, and this is the only thing I do which is different, which is exciting, which is and it's kind of interesting for me. So you see that they also find it interesting to try to do something that is not the same like every single day, right? And here in Honduras, we are getting some of the same response, like people kind of saying, well, it's something new that we don't normally do, is exciting, and also they are interested in learning how to use the machines. So far, I think that their response is something very motivating that keeps me going, and that at least says, well, we can do something here.
That's incredible. And if we were to scale, let's say, your efforts 100x faster, what would you need from the industry or from other people, like, to go in many more countries?
Well, right now we are targeting Latin America. So like after Ratan, we already have gotten some interest from other islands that also they like. At the end of the day, I think bringing, or one of the other problems of like offsite fabrication is that we know that right now the freight industry, shipping industry is a mess. It's totally turned upside down. So it's costly, and it's also very time consuming, right? And that's something that is becoming, so I think that the idea that, well, you do one big shipment of your machines, and then you can fabricate everything using local resources, using local people, is something that is appealing. We know that a lot, that other countries have more, maybe like the US, for example, is a market that is very much established in terms of supply chains, maybe. I don't know if with the current situation, but before. So we are trying to target more like countries that will, right now we are targeting Canada, we are targeting Latin America as a countries that have a lot of resources and could benefit from actually just kind of having these like micro fabrication, micro factories to process things closer to site, as opposed to be moving things around. And I think that it's the idea that if architects, when they design, and we know that it's a global trend, right? That architects, at least in on research and all the paper publications, are moving towards shapes that are more sustainable, that are more curvilinear, but that are more efficient on how they use materials, that are more sustainable. And if we enable small contractors to make them, then also I think we could alleviate that workflow of specifying these kind of geometries that we know are better, if there is a way of fabricating them in a more democratic way and in more places, as opposed to just a few very large contractors, and then things have to be shipped around and it's just very expensive. So I think that way we are kind of aiming to build this proof of concept by the end of next year, and then kind of from there try to expand to other countries which have the same abundance of local skill or of local people, abundance of resources, and they just want to kind of incorporate the ability to fabricate these efficient geometries into the repertoire. And I think that that's something that will allow us to grow into other places. Of course, there is a strong collaboration with the architects that are specifying this, right? And architects that know about digital skills, that know about digital geometry, that know about the efficiencies of using geometry as a structure, as a performative component, and not only as a decorative component. So I think that it's just the whole education in all the industry and the change towards net zero and towards sustainability that will really drive what we are trying to do.
See, actually, I'm kind of a surprise. Like I thought, like in developed countries, because the labor cost is so high, getting robotic machines or offsite fabrication justifies the human labor. And in developing countries where the labor is cheaper, sometimes the machine cost is 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 a bit more. So like I'm kind of a surprise, like how like in those countries where if a contractor has option, okay, I can hire 4 laborers to do this in X amount, or I can get this CNC machine and get it from other place and do it.
Well, it's a collaboration, right? So it's not like the machine versus human, and I think that that's something that we are really not that we are targeting. Not that is not what we are talking about at all. So I think that yeah, and you're totally right. I mean, you're right. So there are like the excess of like the cheap labor that they still need to be upskilled. So they still are wanting to learn. And that's what is happening here in the project in Watan, in Mexico. Whereas in Canada, you have a very different scenario where you have very expensive labor. But at the same time, when they kind of see our microfabrication facility, our box, and they also kind of think, well, like how can that alleviate some of the work, but also preserve some of the highly skilled requirements to be able to be disseminated, right, to a broader audience, or to more people, more young people entering the industry. So I think that this is both. So one is like the fact of upskilling the existing labor when you have it, and even if you have a lot of people, you cannot do a lot of these shapes because that translation between the 3D geometry when it's complex and the on-site fabrication, it's where is not easy, right? It's something that needs to be targeted. And like, for example, in this project in Honduras, if we were not building this idea of the microfabrication facility, then all of the wood would have been imported from another country where they would have built these complex shapes. So the fact that there is a lot of labor doesn't mean that the labor can do these complex shapes as opposed to other countries like maybe Switzerland, or where there is a lot of skill into building this complex geometry. So the other option was, so one option was to do what we are talking about. The other option was to bring everything from abroad. And one of the things that were very much discussed at the beginning of this project was, well, if you bring everything from abroad, what are the benefits to local economies? And I think that that's a conversation that happens not only here in developing countries with a lot of labor, but that happens in general on the move to offsite prefabrication. Local economies do end losing quite a lot in terms of not only the people that are going to build, but even all the adjacent kind of businesses that construction brings, right? Like you need like all the cafes, and you need all of this to support as a construction site. So a lot of those things get lost, and that's something that is part of the vision, is that is a bigger economy that gets benefits if we can bring some of these methods closer to site as opposed as to bringing everything off site. So that's a very kind of interesting question, an interesting paradigm between, okay, if it's to like a more industrialized country, or is this to a more labor intensive economy, but both of them benefit from having the ability of having advanced digital fabrication near site.
Yeah, that's a great insight. And oh, you mentioned about like, okay, that one is about upskilling the construction laborers. Another is also specification. And with what I see with advances in AI and with fabrication, the academia is a bit ahead than the AC industry. And I don't know, like, what are your thoughts on like increasing adoption about technology in the industry, and also architects specifying it? And they might also have like pressure of bureaucracy where the higher management doesn't understand fabrication. So even if the lower designers are capable, they can't like push much.
Yeah, no, I think that's like a great point. Yeah, but I feel that there is an appetite. I mean, we know that robotics and architecture and all of this already has been going on for like 20 years, right? So it's not new anymore, or as it was used to be new. And you can see with a lot of the 3D printing companies that are now like kind of really, there are many of them, like like incremental 3D, they're like vertical, they're like, there are like all of these kind of coming up, and people adopting the technology, the industry kind of really engaging with it. So I think that the appetite is there, the requirement is there. And I think that as the governments, and we now know that most of the governments have like a net zero sort of goals, right? So that's where so I think that I mean, there's definitely a change. There has to be a change on the regulatory frameworks and on the idea of adopting this, but the urgency is imminent. So that's where I think that is part of something that maybe is not happening as fast as we can, but we can now, because the technologies are mature, because there's lots of things that people now have seen that is coming out. I think that there is maybe a easier path towards adoption. Now, in the case of what we are doing, we have a struggle, but with the construction codes and how are we going to do it. But at the end, we are just making different shapes, right? The construction code is the same, so we are not affecting like if there is like a seismic resistance or any of that, we are not really messing up with that. So we are it's just about the production method, and as long as we can guarantee that we are following regulation and production and health and safety, we are good to go. So I think that that there is I think that where there is more issues or where there is more tension is where like a lot of like the shapes, like a lot of like the curved geometries and a lot of these shapes to be accepted. But I believe that there are good efforts going on. I know that that the repanel slab, for example, from BRG is now on full scale production. So like I think that there are very good efforts from academia into really kind of getting these into industry standards and into this being accepted. There is definitely an urgency, and I think that that's something that when we see people and contractors adopting it and really becoming interested, and also our micro credential program that we also have received interest from like technology institutes, not universities but technology institutes, to adopt and to teach this as part of their offering. I think that it could be really like a joint effort between like not only universities, but like, for example, I'm working very close with also Technology Institute in Canada, say it, on like kind of offering this micro-credential training to contractors on the digital fabrication methods. So I think that there is really like a emerging force, and they see it very valuable towards all the UN sustainable goals and all the net zero goals. So I think that it is emerging as a joint effort between institutions, academia, and industry that will have to push the governments to just change if they want to achieve what they have committed to achieve.
Got it. And speaking, let's say I'm speaking on behalf of a journey. Let's say a graduate student from India joins a top universities in Europe or America, learns about digital fabrication, and that student goes back to India. Now, first is like, how can they find clients who is also equally passionate and willing to take risk to have this kind of shapes? And once you can do design for them, like how do they set up fabrication facilities or like collaborate in that local economy? Or should they wait for you guys to set up micro factory there?
No, totally. I don't think they have to wait for anyone. I think there is really like a very I don't know how they get clients, but I think that just by offering like a difference in how you can make things in a more efficient way. And I think that at the end of the day, and that's something that I know from like a lot of friends, like people won't care if what you are doing is done by a robot or not, if it doesn't solve their problem. They won't care at all. And they will ask you about efficiency, about sustainability, about being faster, about saving material, about saving cost, about saving labor. So those like maybe very pragmatic things that we don't like to talk about, and that kind of get away from the poetics of what we are trying to do. But I think that as long as you can show that you are being like, for example, that you are using less material, but you are kind of having the same strength, right? Like all of these like geometry, using geometry, and that the only way to fabricate them is like through digital fabrication, because otherwise, to have this translation between 3D and between complex 3D and the physical space, I think that the conversation starts to change. So I will say, like, from a graduate student from India or from any other part of the world that goes back to their country, and you kind of are talking about digital fabrication, you need to talk on the terms that the industry wants to hear. And those terms will be like, well, this shape is just more sustainable, it's just more efficient, uses less materials. And then the industry will be, well, but it's very expensive to make. And then there is where you kind of have, well, no, if we have these digital fabrication methods, then it will not be more expensive to make. And on top of that, you will be training people to do these construction methodologies that will be better in the future, that because you will kind of, these efficiencies will extrapolate, right? So I think that is where it becomes important to know what you know, to know what you are talking about, to understand how you are going to fabricate them. And I think that with my students, we insist a lot into not only designing, but focusing into the fabrication, into how you are going to make the shapes. Because I think that when you kind of know the terms that the industry wants to hear, then you can really have a better conversation. And you need to be sure that the first offer, the first response will be no, will be resistance, will be no, you cannot do that. No, that's not possible. No, that will not pass any code. That's not acceptable. And then that's where you kind of need to say, well, yes, it will, because like, I mean, here's my research, here's my work. Yes, it will be done, right? Even like we are doing now a project for the city of Calgary, which is just about mold making. So we're just making all the molds with digital fabrication again for concrete. And it's the same, right? It's like, well, it will pass the regulations, but we are only able to make these more complex shapes that are topology optimized, that work better, but to the same cost, just because we are using digital fabrication, right? So we are not talking about, so we have to change somehow, and maybe it's something that we don't teach a lot in academia, but we do have to change how we speak about what we are doing, from the terms of like topology optimization and this, to actually say it's more efficient, it will save you material, it will be cheaper, and it will be stronger. And then the industry will start listening. So I think that that's what I will say. You just have to change the terminology, and then you will be able to do what you want to do. And you also have to challenge the answers. And that's something that fabricators will always say no. And even the shop guys for example, the shop guys they will always say no. You cannot do it on that way. It has to be done on this other way. And that is where, like, kind of like you were saying, Mario, also at the beginning, like learning code, learning this, then you can say, no, it can be done, and show it. Then actually you have a better standard or a better ground to have this conversation.
Got it. Maybe it would be nice to have like entrepreneurship or like marketing course for all the people whom we are teaching like technology and yeah.
No, yeah, totally, absolutely. I think that will be like very important to have, like, and I always say this, like, to have some like a business classes or teaching, because a lot of these and from the DRL, like at the AA, like from my batch, like there are like lots of entrepreneurs, right? Like lots of my colleagues now, they have their own startups. Like there's like AI Build, there is like Automata, there are all of these startups, and there's like Circular Factory, which is my startup, and like, I mean, we never get any of these educations, so definitely it will be a lot better. And you just have to then like be on these incubators and on these kind of things, kind of learning about things. So definitely, I think that if there could be like a more collaborative sort of curriculum where we have some of these like maybe even like an incubator where you are teaching, right? I think it will be very helpful. I will totally support that 100%.
Yeah, I just recently saw like this Formwork Labs, which is like a VC firm, and they started like PropTech and contract focus accelerator, and it just started recently. So like even the VC industry is now realizing how to bring the startup and entrepreneurs and connect with the construction and architectural industry. So efforts like this really help. Like even like, as you said, like having that cohort and with mentorship, like people from you will really help that. So my next question is, okay, we covered a spectrum of your work. Can you like show some technical aspect of the things you're building, which we didn't cover in the verbal talk?
Yeah, sure. I think we have spoken about a lot of it. Let me see. Yeah, I can show you some of the technical things that we are developing. Maybe shall I show you some stuff about the project that we are working here in Rotterdam?
Yeah, it's very, stage is yours.
Wait 1 second, sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Wrong presentation. Yeah, let me just go to this. I just want to be on the correct position. But yeah, for sure, let me show you some of the stuff that we are doing. So this is like I'm going to talk about the project that we have here, and then I will go back to the other projects. Are you good there?
Yep.
Oops,
I could
sorry.
see new vocabulary.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is one of the projects that we are currently kind of working on, with the idea of how can we, so like a bit of what I was saying about like these new vocabularies that we know are more efficient, that we know are more sustainable, but there are limited resources in terms of people, right? In terms of the human factor on how to produce them. So this is one of the projects we're working on. This is a project by Facade Architects, and we are very happy we're working with them. And one of the things of, and this is of their project, right, is the idea that also it kind of allows people to configure their residences, right? Which means that we have to make up a setup for them that allows to use local resources, like I was talking before, that allows to upskill the local economy, but also that has all the flexibility, because for all of the different choices that people can make, right? So it was a very interesting challenge to kind of work on this, to say, well, we're going to make a micro fabrication facility, a shop that will allow to first create this project, which is a very complex and very beautiful project, but will also be able to do all of the variation that the project is requiring, and to deal with that variability and mass customization as people are picking up their own residences and doing all of this. And so this is a project we have been working on with for the last 2 years, and also like, and that's something maybe to the previous question that you were asking me about the students or about people that graduate. I have to say that we have been like 2.5 years working on this, so it's also not something that you will imagine it will just happen like in 6 months. You're going to get it done, right? And we are so I think that there is also kind of a requirement of understanding that there is a time that these things take time to build, and maybe when we see presentations or slideshows or work by other people, we kind of think that, well, this is just like super fast, but it takes a lot of time. So we have been doing this in like for 2 years now. So one of the first things was to actually kind of divide these units, right? And to understand what are the more like kind of regular fabrication parts, like all the timber framing, all of the parts that are not so complex. And those parts are going to be done by a contractor, right? Or we're going to kind of work in the collaboration with local contractors that kind of have capabilities on timber framing that could do this. And of course, we are also kind of trying to establish a lot of these like joint ventures with the local contractors, so that they can work with us to our tolerances and to what we are trying to do. And then we also have the different the shapes or the panels that are more curved, that require from digital fabrication, that require from CNC. Now, one of the things here was like we want to have this as cheap as possible. So we're trying to pack as many processes as there are into the robot arm, and less processes in other machines. So like if the robot, all the two CNC cuts, even if they are 2D, we know that the CNC router will be better equipped to do that. However, that means that we need to buy another machine. So there is a trade-off, and I think that that's also something important to think about trade-offs. There is a trade-off between maybe speed and by changing from a machine that is designed to do that, as opposed to doing with a robot. However, then we need one less machine. So a lot of this trade-off we are continuously analyzing and kind of going through them to kind of not compromise the quality of the or the product, but also keep the flexibility and the cheap price. For all, something important, as I mentioned at the beginning, is that eventually contractors could buy the facility, so they could have access to this. So then there are like the kind of more kernels. How are we going to be fabricating them? How will they be done? And another thing that we are also working on and that we are looking at is actually not only the laminations, but not only how are they going to be made, but also how will the lamination be made? How can it be more expressive? How can it have more of the textures that Zaha wants to show? So we're also working in like the different dimensions of the project into really going into the detail of the different lamination strategies. And then once we are kind of developing our platform where you can, where we're using a little bit of like AI, like more like a principal component analysis to kind of understand these geometries, to start to kind of have these lamination strategies, decompose them into the local material. So this is kind of, all of this is informed by the sizes and the dimensions of materials that we find. And then we have the first robotic processes, for example, on the CNC routing, then we have the lamination, then we have the milling, and then finally like the band sewing, right? So like for every part of this complex project, we develop a digital platform that can extract them, decompose them in the different laminations, and create all the machine instructions. Another thing that we are working on is also on how can we like query or like kind of have an understanding of all of these pieces. So the idea is that the digital platform allows a contractor to kind of monitor their pieces. So you can see what are like the different builds, for example, what are like the different pieces, what is the bill of materials that each of these pieces requires, so they can also have control on that, and the different processes that it will require. And you can see that we have like the human time, which would be like the human loading the machine, working. So what things are being made by humans? Because we cannot say everything is done by robotics, that would be a lie. So we have the human time and the machine time, and what time will be, and then unsupervised time, which basically is maybe when it's drying, when it's gluing. So we are trying to develop a very easy to use digital platform that allows contractors to learn, to understand these geometries, and also to follow the production processes. Also generating all of the G codes for the machine, so that basically you can load the G code on the robots. So we have a CNC machine for the G code and all the robot code, like the rapid code, because on the ABB robots that we have, and to be able to produce them. So we are also kind of working on, so there is a software component that is very important, and the hardware component. As much robots as possible, but also the software to be very easy to use, to allow you to record if something is done, if something is in progress, if there was a problem with a piece, so that we can have on the back end all of this information. And then we are kind of trying implementing an AI to be able to do our to make our platform better, more accurate, the predictions. Right now, our predictions on our work, but based on how the workers are using them, how are they starting to interact with the platform, we're going to be able to refine the times. There's part of the facility, of course, engaging with a lot of the local labor, working with them, and the different kind of the robot doing the different processes, where there is milling, where there is the bandsaw, where there is also the routing. So kind of also having a lot of these different things being used by the robot in combination with the human. And this is some of like the first parts, the bull nose part that we are producing for the project. So this is testing the lamination strategy, testing the different processes and the different machining processes. So that's kind of some of the work that we are doing here in the island. I don't know if there is more time to show something else, or if
it's very flexible. Yeah, up to you.
Okay, so I can show you also. We are doing, as I mentioned before, like a similar let me just stop the share, if that's okay, and I will just show what we are doing also on the factory, on the fabrication facility. Let me just kind of share this one also. So this is also like a similar idea of how can we oops, is it, no, what's going on?
Decentralized. Okay.
No, but it went to the previous one, right?
Yeah.
Sorry,
for a second. Yeah.
Something weird happened. I don't know what's going on. Sorry for that. Let me see. And then when I do the full share, okay, slideshow. Not sure what's going on. Let me just go
Or
here.
maybe the previous, if you close the previous presentation and
It's the same presentation.
oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe I will just go here to this one. Yeah. So it's this idea of what we call like the democratized modern methods of construction. And the idea here is because I know like in the UK, there is a big push towards these modern methods of construction, MSC. Everyone is talking about MSC, MMC, which basically means moving everything offsite, right, to the factory. So this democratized by me means actually bringing it near side, on site, which is what we're trying to do. And the idea of, like as mentioned before, like you have these big CNC machines that are very expensive. How can we pack a lot of that? And there will be compromises, but trade-offs. But how can we pack a lot of that into flexibility, into a cheaper, very like affordable box that can have a lot of these functions? And again, right, like the idea of like moving machines is cheaper than moving volumetric construction. So moving these machines on site with a lot of data collection, we're also introducing a scanning data collection on site and a lot of the tradespeople to utilize them. And we are kind of on the having a lot of integrated robotic processes. So one is the 3D spatial scanning, milling, assembling, and now we are starting to explore some of the 3D printing capabilities. And also the kind of thinking about like, so this is more like a microfactory that is brought on site and then assembled again. The one here in Rotan is on site already. This one, the other one we're working on is more on a box, the factory in a box, a FIAB, and then it's brought on site and then deployed. And here is like some of the workflows that we have in testing, for example, for a project that we had before on like scanning, and it's a lathe. Basically, in this case, it was a lathe. We had to process some logs for fabrication. So we were just testing this with the idea of the lathe and the tool and the bandsaw for shaving the different logs and shaping them for the use that was required for this project. And and the same thing about like on-site construction, benefiting local economy. So we're also doing a project with in this the same three avenues of like a flexible and adaptable microfactory, developing a software and developing the micro-credential upskilling and training program. So we are developing this with Dialogue Architects, which is also like another architectural firm. And in this idea, we are working on a facade for retrofitting an existing building, which I think is also something that right now we are very much looking at, how to retrofit the existing stock, we know that a lot of the downtown areas, like in Chicago, Calgary, and a lot of the big cities are currently underutilized or basically non-utilized at all. So we are working into how to retrofit these buildings. So in this case, we again have the design methodology based on thermal performance that kind of give us these panels that are also have very variability and have a very interesting shapes. So again, the fabrication method in this case, we are kind of creating this factory, this box, which has two robot arms inside. And again, the robot arms are doing a lot of like the bending processes for the laminations, and then are also doing all of the mitering, all of the cutting. So again, it's the idea of the two robots inside the box, kind of on site, and we are also developing this micro-credential training program for the trades to be able to use the box or to rent the box. So that's kind of something that we are working on. And as you can see here, again, a lot of the processes for the prototype are done by the two robots working together. And this is a bending process where we are measuring deflection, the differences, and this is like kind of the box that we have right now with the two robots working there. It's recently transported, so it is there. It was recently transported to the university to be fitted. It's going to be showcased next month. Doing some of the fabrication processes. So it's going to be exhibited to the public in Calgary, in one of the park in downtown Calgary. We'll be doing some of the processes that I just showed. For the public also, there is also an important aspect of public engagement. And for now, we have the public has been very excited, and we have been people being very much willing to see what we are doing. And this is the prototype, fully assembled one-to-one of that facade using the robots and the box as I was showing before. So right now, this was not inside the box, but the same configuration will be inside the box, doing all the processes, all the bending and the mitering and milling processes, as I showed on before. So that's the other project we are working. Similar focus, similar idea. It's just a different box and a different fabrication. And this is also like this a software workflow integrating different components and a digital workflow, a hardware workflow, and the micro-credential training. So I think that those three avenues are consistent on all of the different work that we are doing. Yeah.
I must say, Alicia, like I'm super inspired and super proud what you're developing here. Like just by seeing the workflow and the things you're able to do, like super grateful that like people like you are building this and making it accessible and scalable to a lot more people all over the world. So great.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully, I think that really, I really believe that this could be, that we know that digital fabrication is a game changer. We know that, and I mean there are enough papers talking about it. I think that if we have the ability of not keeping it in the hands of just a little selected people, but actually democratizing access to the trades and to more people in the construction sector, we will have a higher adoption and higher chances of succeeding, and also of achieving sustainability goals and all of the goals that we know are kind of urgent for our planet and for our lives. So that's kind of something I really believe, and I really hope we can be successful in achieving.
Mm-hmm. So if you have unlimited time and resources, what would you do?
If I have what, sorry?
Unlimited time and resources.
What will I do, like in my life, you mean? Or
like, yeah, like what would you do tomorrow morning if like someone provides you?
Well, I think I will finish building my boxes, and I think I will build a very, very beautiful technology demonstrator to show the potential of what we are talking. I think that the construction industry requires margins are very small. So we need to build these beautiful technology demonstrators or pavilions to show what the potentials of the technology are. And I think that I will finalize my factory here on the island that we are hoping will be ready by the end of this year, and we are going to start production by the end of this month, of the month of August. Sorry, because this is July, so the end of this month is tomorrow. But I mean the end of August, which is almost here. We are going to start production. So I think that I will just really try to focus on building it. And right now we are, as a startup, of course, we are asking for resources everywhere. We are asking for money, both in both initiatives. So I think that if I had unlimited access to them, I will be very happy to finish building them and just disseminating the idea and the process as much as I could. So definitely, it's something that I really believe on, and yeah, we don't have unlimited money or resources, unfortunately, but that will be a great scenario. Yes, totally.
Yeah,
and we'll go and get some margaritas by the beach or something.
that's possible. Yeah. And is there anything you wish you would have done differently in life?
Oh, like in my whole life?
Yeah.
I guess a lot of things for sure I would have done differently. I don't know. That's an interesting question, because I don't think you can ever know, right? Like you take one path and you can only speculate. If I could have done something differently, where maybe I would have been on a different place, but then at the same time, I wouldn't have a lot of the things I have now. So yeah, I think something I always and something I always kind of somehow do wonder or think is like, should I have become more focused on a single aspect of what I'm doing, because then I will be better at that single aspect, right? Or should I keep this kind of more general approach? And that's something I don't know. I don't know where would I be in that case. And I know that like I have always been kind of juggling a lot of different knowledge, a lot of things. So like and that's something that I kind of I feel it has allowed me opportunities because I can talk to a lot of different people. So like to architects and I can plan to guide people like developing like digital things and the robotics and the coding, but also the contractors on site and also the material fabricators and also the material providers and also the clients. So sometimes I think that the flexibility of not being super strategically just narrowly focused on something allows you to have to talk to more people and to have a bigger spectrum. However, I do think that people that become very narrowly focused on a single skill, like only robotics or only coding or only AI or only, they kind of get to a place where they are doing very unique things, right? So that's something I always wonder. And when people and for my students, for example, when they ask me, I always say, yeah, you definitely should learn all of these skills. However, how much should you actually only focus on one? I'm not sure. I think it's very valuable. I really admire people that has been very singly focused on honing one skill up to a degree of expertise. But I don't know, maybe that's something that I always think about, and I'm not sure that could have changed my life significantly. But I yeah. So I always wonder what if I should have done that at some point and just like becoming a very very much like super expert in a single thing. And I wish maybe sometimes I would have, and sometimes I think, well, I don't know. So yeah, that's and when people ask me for this, I don't know what to say because I know, but I think that keeping a that it leads you to different paths. So yeah, and that's something that I do wonder if I would have changed something. Maybe I would have spent more time in a single skill and less time in a more in everything else. But also on the other hand, I like to do a lot of different projects. I always have a lot of different projects going on. So I'm always looking for new things, and I think that that's also something that is who I am. So yeah.
Yeah, I could totally relate to it because even like I am also like in multiple boats all the time,
Exactly.
and like there's like I think there is a particular tribe and particular people who have a similar mindset of like, okay, trying new things excites them more, and they're always curious when there's a new sector, new field coming in. So this generalist aspect also helps them. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap up the interview with like a rapid fire question. So you'll have like 10 seconds to answer it, and you gotta keep it very brief.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I don't know any of these questions, so I'm getting ready to see what are you going to ask me.
So which cities are in your travel bucket list?
Oh, which cities are? Oh my gosh, that's a difficult one. Um, I want to go to South Africa. Yeah, I've never been, and I want to go to Siberia.
Okay. Who's your role model?
Oh, uh, I don't know. I think I have had a lot of different role models through my life. Of course, I admire a lot. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think like yeah, I admire a lot of different people for different skills and for different ways of dealing with life. So yeah.
Okay, you kind of passed it, but I'll take it. I see your kid.
Sorry, one second. Sorry.
So cute. Yeah. Is there any business or technical book which made a big impact in your life?
Technical books, I don't know, like I think I'm reading right now this book that is from like 0 to 1 from Peter Thiel, and I find it very exciting. It has been very, especially like kind of open my mind about a lot of the things I'm doing that I was thinking maybe this is doesn't make any sense, and it has really been very interesting. I just finished reading it like last week, and I think it's a very good book to that. I mean, maybe it's the more recent one that I can really relate, but I think it was really helpful for me in the start with the startup and with kind of trying to think about a lot of the things we are talking about.
Mm-hmm. Your favorite movie?
Oh, my favorite. I'm very bad for movies. I really like James Bond movies. That's my guilty pleasure. Like I really, I have to say, it's embarrassing, but I love them.
Yeah. Your favorite restaurant?
Um, where I just moved to a new city like 1 year ago, so I don't have any favorite restaurants there yet. I don't think like I don't think I have a favorite restaurant. Like I do like Mexican food. So generally, if I find a good Mexican restaurant, I just like I just attach to it.
Yeah. And how does a day in your life look like? Like,
Sorry, I lost you.
yeah. It got frozen. I think we are back.
I I don't hear you.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, now I can hear you, but you were frozen for a bit.
Yeah. Okay, we are back.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, my question is like, how does a day in your life look like?
A day in my life, well, I do have a kid, as you just realized. So that kind of puts a lot of issues in my life. So normally I wake up very early, like around 5, to to prepare his stuff, get him ready. Then I drop him at the school around 7, and then I go to the lab. So I spend most of the time in the lab. Normally in the mornings, I try to do the more focused stuff, like either if there is like some coding or some path planning, some robotics. Some of the other stuff. I have a meeting. I have meetings with my team every month. On Mondays and on Wednesdays we meet as a team. The other days I try to use the morning to like the more kind of brain draining things, and then on the afternoon I try to do more of like kind of emails and more of like writing. Also, if I have to write a paper, for example, I will also do that more like in the morning. Then in the afternoon, I try to do more of the operational tasks. Let's say I do a lot of a lot of that, and then I normally have to. Normally by 6 p.m. I have to pick him up from school. So that generally kind of limits a lot my day. And then yeah, make him dinner, put him to bed, and then go back to do some work in the night before sleeping. So that's normally my day. Yeah, it's very much constrained by childcare duties, I have to say.
I see. Is there anything which most people don't know about you, but will be surprised if you share now?
Um, a lot of things people don't know about me, I will say. I don't know what kind of things like surprise people. Like I think that but I don't know, like I wouldn't know what people don't know about me. I like a lot of different sports. I don't know, like I think people get surprised um by like depends which kind of people, right? So but I don't
Yeah.
know what, yeah, that's a difficult thing to know what will they get surprised by.
Yeah, I understand. Like some people have answered in the past, okay, they were like a bouncer in a club, and that was like a lot of people didn't know that they played that role. So kind of,
Oh, something like that, yeah. I have some of those kind of things, like I used to be I worked for some time on an ice cream parlor serving ice creams. Like when I was in Sydney, I did 1 year abroad in Sydney when I was doing architecture. Was very happy there, one of the best cities to be on. So yeah, so I did some of those kind of jobs too when I was backpacking around and just kind of having fun before becoming a person that has to do like kind of more grown-up things. Yeah, I spent like a few months backpacking also around Australia. So it was a lot of fun and doing a lot of these kind of funny, interesting jobs like serving ice creams. That was a lot of fun, and especially getting some for free. So yeah, I think that's maybe something I did for a few that not a lot of people know in terms of odd young jobs.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, man. That's very exciting. You did backpacking. My last question is, what are your hobbies?
My hobbies, I like I like skiing a lot, and it's something that since I moved back to Canada, I'm happy I'm able to practice again. So yeah, that's something I do like to do a lot. most of the time also like I also like reading. I do read a lot. I'm not so much of a movie person anymore. Yeah, so I think that that's most of my hobbies. I also like yeah, I think like I think a lot of hobbies go out of the window when you have a kid, to be honest, because all the time that you're not working, you're caring for them. So I will say, if you have hobbies, don't have kids. Or
I have
David, what
one
are your
bon
hobbies?
I have one bonus. Like, so I've been to Mexico and traveled a lot of cities. I want to know, like, which is your favorite city in Mexico?
Oh, I love Mexico City. I mean, and maybe that's a cliche. Like, I was born in Mexico City. However, I didn't grow up in Mexico City all my life. I live in Merida, which is in the Yucatan Peninsula, very near Cancun, for a large part of my childhood. So it's a very very beautiful colonial city. However, I think I do like big cities. I do like the vibrancy of like a big city where there are many things. I know that there are more dangerous and stuff. So there is danger, but there is also the vibrancy of like meeting a lot of people, of like a lot of things happening at the same time, or being able to know very different people. So I do love Mexico City. I was very happy when I went back to live to Mexico City in high school, and then after that moving to London. And I also had the opportunity to study 1 year in New York. So I think that I really like big cities and their vibrancy. I'm yeah. So I love them.
We have traveled all over the world.
I have been lucky to study in a lot of different places. And yeah, I think the small, like, and also like, I mean, well, Sydney wasn't a big city, it was still middle. I think the smallest city is Calgary, where I'm living now, and well, Rattan is also pretty tiny. So I think that those are small cities, but for somehow, most of my life I have been on big cities. So I think that's why I have this kind of mentality, and I do like them, yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything which we didn't cover in this interview and you would like to share as a closing note?
I think we covered a lot of things. I think you asked me a lot of questions, and I think it was, I'm very happy, and thank you so much for inviting me to be part of your show. It was very nice to have this conversation.
Yeah, I had a great time. I learned a lot. So this was an awesome interview. If you are anytime in Chicago, would love to meet and show you the city. See you. Oh, I
But
don't know if
thank you, Mayur. Thank you
yeah,
so much. I
bye-bye.
lost you again for a bit, but I got you back.
Yeah.